Hey Halloweenies, I'm Ozzy the Horror Cup. Take a trip with me to Woodsboro as we rank all 4 Scream movies. Let's get into it. I need to know what your Scream ranking is down below. So let me know in the comments how you would rank the Scream franchise. Let's get into it, Halloweenies. Coming in at number 4, it's gonna be Scream 3. This movie is comedy gold. I mean, Parker Posey kills this movie. Jennifer Jolie steals the show. Everything she says is simply iconic as she's playing Gale Weathers. Courtney Cox bangs, I live. I think we're all having a Courtney Cox bangs moment in the year 2001. Don't you agree? Like, they're a little bit jiggity, but they're just right. Sydney is kind of placed in the background of these movies, and it's really Gale and Dewey's time to shine in Scream 3. However, because this film wasn't written by Kevin Williamson, because this film has more of a comedy route to it than it actually does more of a horror route, due to the fact of what was going on in real life with the Columbine tragedy, I do feel that this film is hindered. When I watch a Scream film, I want to see great kills, I want to see great stabs, I want to see something inventive. This movie doesn't really have any of that. Sure, I do love Roman. I mean, people shit on Roman all the time as being the Ghostface killer, but you know what? I love this whole twist that Maureen had a son that she never told Sydney about. It's always going back to the sins of the mother. That's the thing about the Scream franchise. Sydney had nothing to do with any of this. Everything is coming back on her because of what her mother was doing previously. And in this movie, you find out that she was Reno Reynolds, that she was in Hollywood, and that there was a seedy backstory going on with the Hollywood producers and executives. This movie is coming in dead last though, just because I think the kills could have been amped up. I think it could have went a little less comedy, although I will tell you something. When I was 10 years old, this was my favorite movie because I was hands down convinced that this whole film had to be a comedy. Now, if you remember correctly, Scary Movie came out in the year 2000. So at this point, I think everybody was just going through fatigue of Ghostface. I mean, you're seeing the spoof Scary Movie where they're making fun of the Scream story, and now it's the year 2000, you've already had 2 of these films. The original Scream was released in 1996. And now already it's the year 2000, so not too much time has passed since the first Scream movie, and already we're at Scream 3. So I guess a lot of fatigue was felt on the franchise at this point. I do think it kind of put the nail in the coffin for the years leading up to Scream 4, just because people were done with the Scream story. But this film, what it is, it's the ending of a trilogy, and Randy points that out to Sydney. Oh Randy, we wish we had you back. I love Randy so much. Randy's one of my favorite characters because Randy represents, to me, what we all are. We're the people that love horror movies, we obsess over them, and then we understand how the codes work, and we're gonna try and help our final girl survive. Randy will always be missed, and it's like, who was his sister? We didn't even know Randy had a sister, and here she is coming to town. Spoiler alert, I hear she's gonna be in Scream 5. Keep an eye out for her on Scream 5. Or as they're just calling it, Scream. But I'm gonna call it Scream 2002 because that's the year it's gonna be released. What are with all these horror movies just going by the same title of the original counterpart? I hate it. Hollywood, get some original ideas. Sydney in this film though, she's not gonna take her victim status. She's gonna rise against her oppression and she's gonna come out of darkness to fight. Because that's what Sydney is. She's a fighter. She's so resilient. And you know, at the end of Scream 2, she's been pushed to run away. She's been pushed to change her identity. She's been pushed to go into hiding. In this film, it's about embracing who you are. In this film, it's about embracing the fact that she can't stay in darkness. She can't hide. She has to take down whoever this person is. And just so happens to be her brother. Twist. And you know what? I'm here for the whole brother twist. Roman to me was giving me the tee-hee-hee-hee, and you know, Roman was kind of hot. If you think Roman's hot, leave me a comment down below. Press that thumb notification bell. Let me get some love up in here for Roman, because Roman Bridger, let me tell you something. Maybe it was your bone structure, maybe it was the way that you just looked in that Ghostface costume, but I was living for it. But unfortunately, Scream 3 just comes off too much comedy. It doesn't go into the horror route. I really do think that Angelina should have been made the second Ghostface killer. I know it was like that in the original script. To me, Roman should have had an accomplice that he turned on. I would have been so into that, but she just comes off as such a whiny little character. This film is just full comedy, and that's how it should be appreciated. I don't really go into Scream 3 expecting myself to get scared or expecting myself to go on this horror movie ride. What I expect from Scream 3 is to just give me a fun time, because that's what Scream 3 is. You're gonna laugh, and you're just gonna be like, okay, I live for Gale Weathers. This movie has to be Gale Weathers at her top. And you know what, Courtney Cox? I love you. I love me some Cox. I think that's the problem in life. Coming in third place, it's gonna be Scream 4. Now, I debated with this movie. Should this movie be in my second tier ranking? Should this movie be in my third tier ranking? Now, this was directed by Wes Craven. This was, again, written by Kevin Williamson. So now Kevin Williamson has come back to the franchise after his absence since 1997's Scream 2. I know he did polish up the script a little bit on Scream 3, but his work was predominantly absent. But that's what Scream 4 to me feels like what Scream 3 should have been. It should have been this movie about them remaking the original, Sydney coming out of darkness, Sydney facing down her foe. This movie to me gives me everything, and I think a lot of that has to do with Emma Roberts. I'm secretly obsessed with Emma Roberts. She's really becoming the new Scream Queen. I mean, look at every single movie she's in. You see an Emma Roberts movie and you're like, okay, she's like the new horror movie Scream Queen. She's got, you know, the American Horror Story series, she's got Scream, she's in The Hunt. Emma Roberts gives me everything I need, and just the way she plays the character of Jill, she's sinister. She tells so many lies that she even forgets to believe them, and the ending is hysterical. Goes off and she stabs Sydney at the end of the movie, and she tells her that she did it all for the fame and she wants to basically take on Sydney's legacy as the final girl, and then she starts ramming herself into the wall and falling over the table. I live. Jill is crazy, and you know what? I think we need a little bit more crazy in our lives. This movie takes the legacy cast, brings them back in, but also introduces everything that the horror genre was now doing in the 2011 era. So remakes were a full force at that point because that was the only thing that the studio would greenlit. The studios really only greenlit the reimagining. They would call them reimagining. Like Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween, it wasn't a remake, it was a reimagining. Then you had all the reboots. I mean, look at Platinum Dunes. They were doing the, you know, Friday the 13th. You had A Nightmare on Elm Street. You had Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Leatherface. All of these remakes, Amityville Horror, everything was just coming because the studio knew that they could make a fast buck off a remake. So to me, Scream 4 does an interesting thing by critiquing the fact that all the studios want to do is remake the original. And that's what the Ghostface in this version is trying to do. Upstage and remake the original. It's a really clever idea. I love the new cast. Kirby, played by Hayden Panettiere. Come on. Kirby is like our new Randy. We live for Kirby on this channel. If you love Kirby, you gotta tell me below because Kirby should survive. Kirby should be in Scream 5 or Scream 2002. I need to see more Kirby. I don't think she died. I mean, come on. They didn't really show it. They showed her bleeding out, but anybody can survive a knife. Scream 4 does so well is that it balances comedy and horror, and that's something that Scream 3 had a really hard time trying to do because Scream 3, maybe that was the fact that Scary Movie had just come out, but it just feels like a spoof of the Scream series. Scream 3 I'm talking about, not Scary Movie, and that's the funny thing is, when your films start to feel like a spoof of the original, I'm talking about you, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, you just start losing interest in these movies, and I think that's the problem with Scream 3. We were so burnt down on it. But Scream 4, now taking place in 2011, and having these fresh concepts, and having the whole meta idea of remaking the original, I really do think that it elevates this film and it brings it to a different level. I think with Scream 4, to me, sometimes this could be my second tier rating because of how much I really do enjoy this movie. Whether it be the opening scenes where you don't really know what the opening of the movie is going to be because you have all the different intros of the Stab films. And I love that. I love that they're bringing the Stab movies back into Scream. I would actually love to see a Stab film. However, Scream 4, some days you're my favorite film, some days you're a little bit lower on the ranking. I still love this movie, I still love the characters, but it's gonna come in third place. And in second place, it's gonna be Scream 2. Released in 1997, this was the initial follow-up to the first Scream. And you know what, some days I wanna put this film as my third place ranking, and some days I wanna put this film in my number 2 ranking. For this day, we're putting this in the number 2 film ranking. Why? I think Scream 2 is better than Scream 4, and this is just me, and I have days where it flips back and forth, but to me, you're getting the original cast of characters. It's the immediate sequel after Scream, so it gets brownie points for that, for me, because I love these characters. I love continuing on with their journey. I love that now you're moving the setting from going to high school to university. I love Mickey. Mickey is one of my favorite Ghostface. Mickey is just crazy, and I would have loved to have seen how the court case would have turned out. You know, at the end of the movie, he wanted to blame the horror movie industry. He wanted to blame the film industry for why he was a murderer. I would have loved to have seen how that court case would have turned out. Can you blame the movies? Has that ever been done successfully? I don't know, but I need to see it. Plus, he's hot AF. Mrs. Loomis sells crazy in this movie. I love that it's Roseanne's sister coming at Sydney. I love Gale Weathers in this movie. She's so resilient, she's so brave. Sydney goes through a lot in this film because she's going over the emotional trauma that just happened to her in the first Scream. Only about, I think, 2 years has passed from Scream 1 to Scream 2 as she's at Windsor College. But she's still going through so much. She hasn't healed the wounds of what happened to her in the first Scream. She's not the person that she is in Scream 4. In Scream 4, she's totally out of darkness. She's totally a badass, a resilient final girl. However, in Scream 2, she's still learning who she is. She's still learning the fact that she is a survivor. And I think that's the best thing about Sydney. Sydney Prescott is a fighter. And that's something that she has that conversation with her college drama professor, her teacher, that she's a fighter. And her professor looks at her and goes, "I don't believe you." And she goes, "I'm a fighter." And you know what? After she said that, I really do start believing that Sydney can take down anybody. I think that was when Sydney first started to see that she could overcome anything in her life. I think she needed that shove to be told who she is. Because no one, no man, no woman is ever gonna stop Sydney Prescott. The opening kill in this movie is fabulous. I love that it's at a movie theater. Jada Pinkett Smith sells this. And she dies and she's like, ah! I live for everything that's coming out of her mouth as she's being stabbed by Ghostface, aka Mickey. Even the fact that the beginning of the movie opens up with a stab film and it's our first look at a stab film, I think it's hilarious. And that's why I need a stab film in my life. Obviously directed by Robert Rodriguez. The Mrs. Loomis twist, I love. I live for a good twist. And I love the fact that this was just good old-fashioned revenge. This was a revenge movie. I mean, all the Ghostface you could say want revenge against Sydney. Jill and Charlie, not so much, just because, I mean, Maureen didn't do them dirty, because a lot of the movies are paying for the sins of the mother from Maureen. And that's why this movie, I think, works so well, is because Sydney was not the reason why Billy Loomis turned evil. And the mother, Mrs. Loomis, is blaming Sydney for everything that went wrong in Billy's life. And that's not fair. And you know what? That's the thing with Sydney in these movies. She's constantly being gaslit by these men or women around her. And in this film, she's got Mickey gaslighting her left and right, saying that, you know, could be your boyfriend could be the killer. And Sydney, somebody who has unopened wounds, somebody who hasn't completely healed and come out of darkness, she's believing this. She's letting herself be manipulated by men or women. I think that's something that Sydney grows and learns from. It takes her Scream 2 and Scream 3 to become the new final girl that we see in Scream 4 that's just completely resilient and badass. But in Scream 2, she really does step it up. When she's got the axe at the very end and she's cutting all the cords on Mrs. Loomis, I live for it. Like, take back your power, Sydney. Take back your destiny. Cotton Weary showing up at the very ending is hilarious. And you know what? Scream 2 does make an excellent movie. How dare you kill Randy, though? Randy shouldn't have died. Hashtag justice for Randy. Hashtag Randy shouldn't have died. Hashtag that's my thoughts. But you know what? Love Scream 2. Love the music. Love that car crash sequence when they're trying to climb out of the car. That is some great suspense. And you know what? I think that's something that the Scream movies can benefit more from. Having great suspenseful moments like that when Sydney and her roommate are trying to climb out of that cop car after it's crashed, as Mickey has been driving it after he's killed the two detectives. I honestly didn't expect Mickey to jump out of the corner and kill the roommate. I really did think as they were climbing out of the car, he was going to come back to life. And I remember seeing this film. This film was always on TV when I was growing up. So I think this was one of the first films that I've ever seen for a Scream movie. But you know what? This film will hold your interest. And it's got to be number 2 on my ranking. I love you, Scream 2. Coming in at number 1, hands down, has to be the original Scream. This movie revitalized the slasher genre. Directed by Wes Craven in 1996, this movie really did change the game. It took everything that all the slasher films had up to it and flipped it on its head with this whole meta approach. Kevin Williamson actually wrote the script because he was inspired by the Gainesville Ripper. So this was an actual case about a man that was climbing in through windows and killing women. And you know, it really did affect him, because I remember I was watching Inside the Scream Story, and Kevin Williamson was saying that when he was writing the script, he was house sitting and noticed that one of the windows had been left open for 2 days, and he got so scared that he was like, how did that window get open? I was just watching the news reports about the Gainesville Ripper, so that's what really did inspire this film. The great thing about Scream has to be the opening. The first 15 minutes with Casey Becker, Drew Barrymore. I mean, come on. Drew Barrymore slays this film. I love me some Casey Becker. it started the whole what's your favorite scary movie. The opening lines in these movies, I mean, Casey Becker making Jiffy Pop, is there anything more iconic? Getting introduced to this talented young cast. I mean, Skeet Ulrich, come on. Sexy, sexy, sexy for Billy Loomis. Stu Macher, aka Lillard. Come on, Matthew Lillard, everything that he does in this movie, just how he plays Stu, he elevates the character so much. And I love at the end when he gets smacked with the phone by Billy, and he's like, you hit me with a phone! And he's like bleeding everywhere, and he's asking Sydney if she really did call the cops, and then he's like, my parents are gonna kill me! Again, that's something that the Scream films do so incredibly well. It's combining the horror, it's combining the comedy, and it's merging them together to create this meta parody. But at the end of the day, it's still a horror film, and that's something that Scream 3 didn't understand. And the reason behind that, I think it has to do with the fact that Kevin Williamson wasn't writing the screenplay for it. To have a successful Scream movie, you need Kevin Williamson. And having Scream really did put him on the map. Everything in this movie is hands down iconic. Whether it be the opening kill, whether it be the last 40 minutes of the movie that's completely shot at night. And it's at the party scene when they finally do go to Stu's house, and this is when the massacre really does start to pick up, because at this point, who's really been killed besides Casey and Steve? Now Tatum's being taken off. Oh my god, we have to talk about Tatum. Tatum is just so fabulous. Tatum is one of those best friends that will just stick with you through anything. Rose McGowan, the way that she plays this character, she makes her so believable. Cool it, Casper. I want to make it to the sequel. Like, everything that Rose McGowan sells in this movie is the tee-hee-hee. And her trying to fit through that little doggy door, come on, that's iconic. And you know what? I heard a rumor that she actually did fit through that doggy door when they were filming it, and they were like, oh shit, she can fit through it. Could you imagine me trying to fit through that doggy door? It'd be like that scene in Scary Movie. Don't hurt me, I'm just a daytime actress, and she's trying to get through it. That would be me in a Scream movie, swear to God. Hilarious. Ending sells it for me though. I mean, Billy and Stu, when they're together and they're revealing their plan to Sydney, it's masterful. I mean, those last couple minutes when they're stabbing each other and they're revealing their plan to Sydney, everything that's going on, it really just holds your attention. It keeps you so fixed. This is a movie that will honestly never get boring for me to watch. I can put on Scream, got it right over here. I could put on Scream and I could never get bored of having this film on, because every single time I watch it, I feel like I learn something new. I find that everything that Wes Craven does as a director, Wes Craven is brilliant. I mean, Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, New Nightmare, and now you're giving us Scream. Hands down iconic, and Wes Craven originally didn't want to direct this film. I think he turned it down twice. I'm so glad though that he was a part of it, because what makes the Scream films so special has to be Wes Craven and his legacy, and the cast truly did adore him. For all those reasons, Scream has to be my #1. Let me know how my list compared to yours. Did you put Scream 4 higher than I put Scream 4? Did you put it in the #2 spot? I need to know what your franchise ranking is. So comment below and tell me what your Scream franchise ranking is. I'm dying to know. Also, what's your favorite scary movie? Well, Halloweenies, that's all the time that we have for today. Smash that subscribe button to be notified about all of our future content. Next week, we're going back to Elm Street because it's time for Slash or Slay as we review the fashions of Nightmares on Elm Street in Freddy's Revenge. I can't wait to see you there. It's Pride Month, guys. Pride Month means we have to celebrate with Freddy's Revenge, aka the gayest Nightmare on Elm Street of all. And who better to host Nightmares on Elm Street than one of the gayest horror hosts around? Elvira, eat your heart out. Until next time, stay spooky. Love you guys.